But we had, despite their their 3-0 start, is this year's Eagles team underwhelming? And once again, Zay, you can start us off.
It's weird to say the it's weird because the way I've been watching the Eagles, they don't seem as explosive as they once was. It seems that despite the run game being as good as it is, DeAndre Swift running the lights out the ball the last two games, it just seems like the Eagles haven't been the explosive team that we have to worry about. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith out there, Dallas Goddard, something that we've seen a lot last year, a lot of different combinations, and it feels different in terms of explosion. It seems very like old school football in this case, a lot more running, a lot less explosive plays, a lot less throws down the field. It's underwhelming in terms of not exciting to watch. It's kind of like when the Spurs used to take over the NBA. It wasn't like an exciting watch to watch this team basketball all throughout the game. But in this Eagles game, it just seems like they're just worried. They're not really worried. They're just more we're gonna get first down regardless. Just run the ball a couple times, and then we'll make that simple throw for the touchdown. And that's the game we're watching with the Eagles now. When we watch football, when we talk about like a team that's exciting and overwhelming, people talk about the Dolphins. They talk about seeing Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, and them. We're talking about this Eagles team. They don't look like that same dynamic team that we saw last year. I don't know if that's because they lost the coordinators. I don't know if the players lost a step, or defenses are more prepared for the Eagles now more than ever. But it just doesn't seem like an explosive team that we once saw. And I think underwhelming. I would say yes, just in terms of we thought we would be seeing another dynamic performance from everybody. AJ Brown going for like 200-yard receiving yards, or Devontae Smith having an explosive year, or Jalen Hurts taking that extra step after signing that contract. But they're winning games. That's the most important thing. It's just not as explosive as I wanted it to be, I guess, as a fan of just watching great football. So I think for me, yes, I would say they are a tad underwhelming despite their 3-0 start.
Yeah, I disagree with you. They 3-0. I don't think they're underwhelming. I think they're different, and that was to be expected with the loss of the two coordinators. Now, there's one argument that could be made that they are a smidge, and maybe a smidge is an understatement, but they are less explosive as last year, where they were clicking on all cylinders and their defense was elite, and their defense still is good. But it's just like they were unbeatable last year. And I get that. When you look around the league and you see the two coordinators that left to take jobs, I mean, you look at the Cardinals, they're a surprise team right now, right? The Cardinals and the Colts, right? Because, Jonathan Gannon, Cardinals job, Stain Steichen, coach job. The Colts and the Cardinals were predicted to have the two worst records in the National Football League, and they're playing hard and they're winning games. And those are the guys that you lost. So it is a loss. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill and they won a Super Bowl. So I think it's about adaptation, right? Was last year's Chiefs, that won the championship, the best version of the Kelsey, Mahomes, Andy Reid era? No, because when you have Tyreek Hill, who's also putting up numbers on the Dolphins, being a number one wide receiver that he is, probably arguably still the best wide receiver in the league. You could argue him, Jefferson, and Devontae Adams, but you get my point. That was the most explosive Chiefs team, but yet they were able to adapt and win a championship, right? So even though the Eagles are not as explosive, and maybe this year's team is not better than last year's team, they're still 3-0, and they're still finding ways to win with room to get better. So I think when you talk about, Jalen Hurts, yeah, he didn't have the best game, but his game yesterday was still, bottom tier quarterback's best game. Even though he had a couple interceptions, 2 interceptions, he still made a nice throw for a touchdown. And, he had his flu game. I get it. I don't think he's a top 3 quarterback like Zach was pounding on the table trying to say. He didn't look like a top 3 quarterback this year, but I still think he's arguably a top 5 quarterback. And you'd be like, what's the difference between 3 and 5? Ask Zach, not me. Clearly it is. He was banging on the table, but, he's still a top 5 quarterback in the league. And he showed that yesterday, being able to not have his best game, but still make plays to win. And we got to talk about this running game, with DeAndre Swift. We have to realize that the Eagles were able to, even though they lost, they added, and they were in a position to take risks that other teams weren't willing to take. For example, with DeAndre Swift. They only traded a fourth and seventh rounder, to get him. And, the Lions ended up, paying David Montgomery $18 million while Swift is only making $1.9 million. And they drafted, Jameer Gibbs with a 12th round pick. I mean, clearly they got robbed. Clearly, with the amount of expenses they played to replace or reshuffle running backs while, DeAndre Swift is out here excelling on the Eagles, being able to rush for 130 yards 16 times yesterday, the week before, 175 yards on 28 carries. So he clearly is giving the Eagles a bona fide number one rusher. When you talk about the other risks that they took with Jalen Carter, he fell in the draft. He was arguably the best player in the draft, okay, heading in. But the off the field antics, the Eagles ain't care. We got a good team. We could take that risk. And they did. They felt him at 11, I believe. I believe it was 11 pick. I may be wrong. Ninth. I think it's ninth pick. They fell to him. And he made plays in this game. Clearly, he had a strip fumble. He had a sack, I believe, and he's playing hard. And it's like, when you think about it, the Eagles have a lot of depth now on the D line. So he's going to have that friendly one-on-one mismatches to be able to get to the quarterback and make impact plays. So when you talk about, guys that they were able to take risks on, like DeAndre Swift and Jalen Carter, that's why this team is a little bit more dynamic than last year's in those retrospects, because Miles Sanders was up and down last year until he got going. DeAndre Swift right out the gate is explosive and looking very explosive and looking like the Lions made a mistake. So even though the Eagles are not the dominant team of last year, clearly they don't need to be. They're 3-0. And the next big matchup that should be a test to them is the Dolphins, and that's in a couple weeks, not now. So they can stockpile wins and get better, and we'll see where they go from there.
Absolutely. I think when you look at the roster construction of the Philadelphia Eagles, like I said, that defensive line is dynamic. I don't know how I would say risk for Jalen Carter and DeAndre Swift, because I felt like they were both really good players. They're really good. I mean, at
No,
least
that's a good
Carter
point.
coming to college, really good. But
That's a good point too. I want to make it clear real quickly, Zay, because even though when you're trading the fourth and seventh rounder, it's not really that risky for a guy in Swift that was a second rounder and all that. I think the risk comes from him being injury prone.
yeah. No, no,
But yeah,
I
you could be
understand that.
right with that.
I just feel like in terms of like talent, when you look at Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift, I feel like Swift is a little more talented than Sanders. I think when you look at the offensive line that they have, anybody's gonna get great yardage, and they're gonna look dynamic on his offensive line. I think Swift just looks a little bit more better than when he already looked. He looked like a stud in Detroit, just his injury problems, right? But on the Eagles, the offensive line is protecting him. He's able to run for damn near 8-9 yards of carry without an issue, without even being touched at all, without even having to break a tackle. So that's something that's like, crazy to see, to say the least. And it's just like I said, the underwhelming part for me for the Eagles is not because of their roster construction. It's not because I don't believe they have enough talent to win a division. It's just the explosive plays. I'm not seeing enough of it. The running game is phenomenal. I've been seeing that a lot, and I think the Eagles have this current philosophy that we have the big boys up front that could block anybody at any given time. We're not afraid of anybody's front line. We could run the ball down anyone's throats, and I think that's something they're kind of fitting into. It's like, fine, let's see who can stop the run game, because we don't need to throw the ball 40 times a game if the run game is being established in this facet. It is not necessary. So I think, it just like you don't see the explosion enough, in my opinion, because if the run game can get you 3rd and 1, guess what? Jalen Hurts is doing that tush push. He gets to that first down. Even on 4th down, they'll go make that play, because they're not even going to kick the ball. They'll make sure they'll get that first down on 4th and short. So it's something that, you want to see more, but at the same time, they're winning games, and that's all they're worried about. They're worried about getting to the big dance, the big game. That's the Super Bowl. So, I mean, winning the game at, any means necessary. Hey, I'm all for it. I get it. And, I'm a supporter of it. I just would like to see more explosive plays as we saw last year. The scrambling out, Jalen Hurts just doing the electric juke moves. AJ getting 30-yard bombs, 40-yard bombs. Devontae Smith getting 3 touchdown games. Those are the plays that we saw the Eagles last year. Like, whoa, this team is here. And then, they're still here. Of course, they didn't go anywhere. It's just explosion. We want to see the explosive, the fireworks. That's something that we related the Philadelphia Eagles in being, not only on the offensive end, but the defensive end. You said it, Jordan Davis, big guy. He's now getting one-on-one opportunities, and he's a strong dude. He's going to get to the quarterback. He's going to get to the running back easily. Jalen Carter, I think when he comes back to Kobe Dean, I don't know if he had an injury. I don't know if he's out for the season, but when he comes back, when fully healthy, that's another, they have a stacked team. It just, it's more so of, I want to see the highlight plays. That's really, when I'm watching the Eagles game, what I look forward to the most.
I mean, I have AJ Brown on my fantasy league, so I'm looking forward too. I want to see, AJ Brown being able to have 3 touchdowns a game like how he did last year. That's why I invested in him this year, because I was expecting him to pick up where he left off last year.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly I made a mistake picking him over, guys that I'm embarrassed to name that I picked over him because he hasn't been, fantasy productive. But
Mm-hmm.
in real life, I think they just finding ways to win the game. And yeah, I would love to see the explosive plays too, right? Obviously for ulterior motives that I just briefly mentioned, but they're winning games. And when you look at the Chiefs, somebody that has had to adapt on the fly, because you're never going to stay the same. When you
Mm-hmm.
win a championship or get to a championship, chances are keeping your team together is going to be hard. And the Eagles learned that this offseason. So you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And the Chiefs have a boring offense to me. It's boring. Like they slow kill you. Like they methodically short passes. When do the Chiefs do anything deep anymore without Tyreek Hill? They don't. Everything is short. Get the ball out, pitches. Kelsey get open for a couple yards, throw it to him. Throw it to the running backs. It's not cute, but they're winning Super Bowls doing it, and they're winning games. The Eagles, yeah, it's not cute, but they're running the football, and they're nobody's stopping DeAndre Swift right now. So I think, yeah, I don't think it's underwhelming. I just think it's different. And, the league is different. The Bengals are not having explosive play like last year, right? Teams are taking away the big play. That's what's happening, in today's NFL. The offenses got too crazy, right? They're getting torched down the field for the last couple years. And now defenses are taking away the big play, playing the 2 high safety, playing the zone. Most of the teams, like 90%, play zone.
Yep.
Some teams play zone throughout the whole game. So they're taking away the big play. And the fact that the Eagles are able to adapt and still win games, even though it's against, the Buccaneers and the Vikings and the Patriots, they're still 3-0, which
Yep.
means that no bad team could beat this Eagles team. That's what it means. But on the flip side, and this is my last point, I thought that the OC from Tampa, Dave
Mm-hmm.
Canales, made a mistake, repeatedly attacking the interior of the Philadelphia Eagles defense, right? You're talking about Fletcher Cox, you're talking about Jalen Carter, and they're trying to rush the football and attack the strength of this team right now. And that wasn't a good game plan. I understand the need to, identify with the running game. And he coming from Seattle, you would think that the Buccaneers will be a much better running team than they are. They're not. You think he will be able to, add that and apply that to this offense. But, you have to read the game. Sometimes a game dictates you to do things that you're not accustomed to doing. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but they should have allowed Baker Mayfield to cook, even if he burns the food, because I'm not a Baker Mayfield guy. I think he's trash. But they should have allowed him to cook more and make use. It's not only about Baker cooking. It's about letting guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, your best players, cook. Especially when the Eagles are going to stop your running game and they are stopping your running game. That's when you have to allow Baker Mayfield to give guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are your 2 best players on your whole offense, the
Mm-hmm.
ball. So, I think some of it too is what the other teams are not doing, but still, you can't take away that the Eagles are 3-0.
Yeah, absolutely not. Hey, I think the Eagles, they're gonna have a great season just in terms of what they're already doing so far, and they have a couple of tough games. I would like to see, hopefully, to see to really test these coordinators. I think that Patriots and Eagles game, I thought the coordinators were tested because the Patriots were making a run back, and I was like, "There's no way the Patriots win this game," but it was close to say the least. But and I say the least. What are your thoughts on the Eagles? Please like and subscribe to the channel. Tell us how you feel about the Eagles. Comment on your Eagles predictions and what they will do this season.
Absolutely. We might as well move on to the other Monday Night Football game that was on around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And real quickly here, I just want to get one biggest takeaway from either side. We could pick a side, and just one big takeaway after Joe Burrow and the Bengals hold on to defeat the Rams on Monday Night Football. Zay, what's your big takeaway?
The Rams are feisty. Man, I think that's the biggest takeaway. I think the Bengals only scoring 19 with a dynamic offense is clear that Joe Burrow is not prepared to win. I mean, to play on the football field. He's not healthy enough to play on that football field. He's really it's something that they need to be extremely cautious about to make sure that this injury doesn't turn into a season-ending injury or something that could prolong for 2 years. You have to stay monitored on this kid because you don't want him. That's your franchise quarterback. You just paid him all that money. You don't want him to have a disastrous injury that takes away how good of a guy, good of a player he is on the football field, and make your investment into him seem like not worth it. But this kid is the Rams, excuse me. They have a lot of young guys on this team that are just feisty. They're fighting through the progressions. They're going at it with T. Higgins. They're going at it, even though T. Higgins had a lot of open drops, but they was going at it with T. Higgins most of the game, going at it with Jamar Chase, attacking the defensive line with the running game and Tutu.
That Spoon interception one-handed was crazy too. That was a very good
Ridiculous.
interception.
Ridiculous. And there's a kid I didn't even know going before the season, and his name is known now. The Rams team is doing a phenomenal job of just staying in the game, staying within the game, fighting. Kudos to Matthew Stafford for finding multiple targets throughout the game. He loves Puka. He's throwing it to him a lot. Like I said, Higbee's getting a lot of touches, targets, receptions. They have a lot of guys who weren't known before the season, who weren't really advertised. I would say not known, weren't advertised on this Rams teams before, and now they're showing their work. They're showing that even without Cooper Kupp, they're able to make plays, highlight plays. Even without extremely known defensive players, they're able to put in rookies. They even put in guys who weren't highly advertised and really disrupt what the Bengals do best, disrupt what other teams do best. I think despite the loss, it's something to hang their hat on, that they kept it within the game against the Bengals, a team that has the talent to change the game no matter what quarter it is, how much they're down. So that's something that, I give kudos to the Rams and Sean McVay, because that team is fighting hard and Sean McVay is keeping them in every single game that they've played so far.
Yeah, I think if I had to give a big takeaway, it would kind of be a generalized takeaway. Don't count both of these teams out.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And you start with the Bengals. They're 1-2. They've been down this road before.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a little bit more adversity with the Joe Burrow injury, with the calf injury that he's dealing with and playing with. So obviously, anytime he leaves the pocket, there's a general concern there. And it's not going to get better right now. He's going to have to play through it until it gets better, and hopefully they're able to keep him upright through that time period of the next couple of weeks to get it healed and still win games that way, because they can't drop games. They can't go 1-3. I understand 0-3, you wanted to avoid that and you did, but you don't want to go 1-3 by losing next week, because now you're digging yourself in a hole that you just dig yourself out of. And now you're playing catch up in this division that clearly is going to be up for the taking. The Ravens are a good team, but it was close. Everything is close here in the North right now. So you definitely want to stay afloat and keep yourself in, distance to be able to squeak out a division title, or perhaps just get in and, take your chances there. So I thought it was a very good, gutsy performance from Joe Burrow. It wasn't perfect, but clearly, he's a little bit out of sync still, but he was able to find a rhythm. And it just goes back to the point that everybody's making. When you talk about Joe Burrow and how out of sync he looked, the first couple of games, not having those reps in the summer, those were 3 weeks, right? It's funny how people don't cut Deshaun Watson some slack when he missed 2 years of football prior to last year. We are seeing it right now with Joe Burrow. You need reps. Okay, clearly you can't miss time. It's going to be an adjustment period. And when you miss 2 years, I could just imagine the adjustment period for Deshaun Watson. Now, clearly this year is another year. And, he's been off to a rocky start. He actually looked good for the first time in the Browns uniform on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. But, at the end of the day, we have to have reasonable expectations. I understand he got the fully guaranteed money, but Joe Burrow's played too. So at the end of the day, we have to see how it goes. On the Rams side, and why we shouldn't count them out either, is the fact that they are going to be a hard team to play. They're not easy. And the Seahawks got caught with a left hook they ain't see coming week 1. And, the 49ers, they gave them all they can handle last week too. And yesterday they gave the Bengals all they can handle. And, they have a lot of offensive line issues. That would be the major concern for me out of anything, is the offensive line. They had a left tackle that got injured in this game. They also had a right guard who was out. and Matthew Stafford really looked like, you know, really looked confused in that pocket, throwing interceptions, overthrowing Kyron Williams. They try to get the running back out of the backfield, and he was missing throws, easy throws, and throwing interceptions. So the offensive line, the game is one of the trenches. So the offensive line is a little bit of a concern for me right now. But, the defense is playing hard. You still got Aaron Donald. You still got decent receivers. But Sean McVay, can you run the damn football? Or you out of your cotton picking mind, my guy? Run the football. They had one drive in the red zone by the goal line where they had first and goal, and they ran. No, excuse me, they didn't run the ball. 3 straight passes. You need to run that ball on first down. Okay, don't abandon the running game. And that was my big question coming into the year: is if Sean McVay is going to commit to running the football, something they didn't do last year. They gave up on Cam Akers. Kyron Williams is the guy. Run the rock. When you have an offensive line that's dropping like flies and Matthew Stafford looks a little bit uncomfortable. I understand he was playing well prior to yesterday, but still, run the football. But besides that, they do have some talent. Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, the man, the legend himself, and when Cooper Kupp gets back here, the Rams may have a very, very good looking explosive offense on paper when Cooper Kupp comes back. It's just a matter of how he, Sean McVay manages Puka and Cooper. Do they play him at the same time? Me, I'm of the mindset you need your best players out there. Okay, I want my best players on the field. Okay, somebody's going to have to adapt. And if they can adapt with the offensive line issues, then this team is a team that I think, and this is my last point here, is closer to making the playoffs than the Seahawks.
That's a great point in terms of that Rams team. But question, I want to ask you, how do you feel about the Bengals even after the win? Do you feel like this is going to give them momentum for the weeks to come, or do they still need to be worried about Joe Burrow's not being even? It looks like not even 60% of who he is.
Yeah, there's always a concern there. Like I said, don't count them out. They've been down this road before last year, but they're not out of the woods, not even close. Okay. Like I said, you just never know with those injuries. It could be re-aggravated. It wasn't last night. So that's a good thing. You was able to keep him alive in the pocket. But, at the end of the day, you're 1-2. There's a lot of ground to cover. This division is tough. The Steelers got a good defense, great defense. The Browns got a great defense. The Ravens have a good offense. So, you should be having the mentality of, we did this last year, we could do it again. But at the same time, as fans, we need to, all right, don't count them out. But fingers crossed at the same time. That's how I look at it.
Well, hey, listen, I think, like I said, that was an exciting Monday Night Football game. Both games actually exciting to watch, to see. But, look out for the Rams and the Bengals, 2 teams that are going to make their marks during the season, if not already. Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.